There is no heartbreak quite like the $22 Four-Pack Heartbreak. You know the feeling. You've been chasing this release for weeks. You saw the Instagram post, you stood in the line, or maybe you traded a vertical of stout for this specific whale. It looks perfect in the glass. The haze is glowing like a New England sunset. But the second that glass hits your nose, it's not tropical fruit. It's not dank. It's movie theater popcorn butter. Or maybe it's worse. Maybe it's the sharp metallic tang of a penny, or the distinct aroma of a damp cardboard box that's been sitting in a basement since 1994. In the world of modern craft beer, we've been told that innovation justifies the price tag. But as the hype era matures, a dark secret is bubbling to the surface. Quality control is slipping. Today, we aren't just drinking beer, we're navigating a minefield of bad batches masquerading as limited releases. Today, we're going to stop the bleeding. I'm going to show you exactly how to spot a bad batch before you finish the first sip, the technical chemistry behind why your favorite breweries are failing you, and 5 safe havens, the breweries where the QC lab is more important than the marketing department. Grab a glass of something you actually trust. We're going deep into the science of the suck. To understand why we're currently drowning in a sea of off-flavored IPAs, we have to look back at the step-by-step storytelling of the craft revolution. In the beginning, there was a clear enemy: big beer. The mission was simple: flavor at any cost. If a batch was a little inconsistent, the early beer geeks forgave it because it was honest and independent. But then came the 2000s and 10s. The Haze Craze didn't just change the flavor profile of American beer, it changed the business model. And suddenly, breweries weren't just competing on taste, they were competing on velocity. To keep the tickers on Untapped happy, breweries had to release a new triple dry hopped Galaxy Citra bomb every single Friday. Here's the discovery we made as a community. You can't rush biology. When you scale from a 5-barrel pilot system to a 60-barrel production powerhouse overnight to meet the demand of the hype train, things break. Quality control, QC, is often the first casualty of rapid expansion. In the early days, if a batch of pale ale came out smelling like green apples, that's acetaldehyde, by the way, a brewer with integrity would dump the tank. That's a $10,000 loss. But in today's high-stakes market, some breweries are blending it away, or worse, dry hopping it into oblivion and hoping you won't notice the chemical defect under 3 pounds of mosaic per barrel. Think of it like this. Imagine you're buying a high-performance Italian sports car. You're paying for the precision engineering, the wind tunnel testing, and the 200-point inspection before it leaves the factory. That is what a benchmark craft beer should be. Beers like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale or Russian River's Pliny the Elder. They are the result of decades of laboratory-level consistency. Now imagine a local shop starts selling handcrafted supercars. They look the part. They have the carbon fiber spoilers and the loud exhaust. But because they're trying to build 10 cars a week in a 2-car garage, they skip the alignment. They don't balance the tires. The first time you take a corner at 60 miles an hour, the steering wheel starts shaking in your hands. That shaking steering wheel in your beer, that's an off flavor. It's a sign that the engineering behind the brew, the fermentation temperature, the yeast health, the dissolved oxygen levels, was ignored in favor of the aesthetic. We've traded process for post. And as beer geeks, we've become the unpaid and often overcharged test drivers for breweries that haven't mastered their own equipment. But before we tear down the bad batches, we need to be fair. There is an argument to be made for the experimental chaos of the current scene. Some say that a little bit of character or variation is what makes craft beer human. Let's look at that perspective for a moment before we see why it's actually a dangerous excuse for laziness. It's time to stop talking in abstractions and start naming names. If you're a beer geek in the US, you know that the word craft has been legally and commercially diluted. We aren't just looking for off flavors like diacetyl anymore. We're looking for process flaws driven by corporate greed. Here is the dirty dozen, the beers that represent the biggest falls from grace or the most egregious deceptions in the modern aisles. 1. Shock Top. Belgian White, Anheuser-Busch InBev. Let's start with the ultimate craft imposter. Shock Top markets itself with a quirky mohawk-wearing orange, but it is pure industrial product. Since AB InBev took over, the recipe has leaned heavily on high-fructose corn syrup and natural flavors instead of actual orange peel and coriander. It's a chemical simulation of a wit beer designed for a low-cost, high-margin world. If you want a bad batch that is consistently artificial, this is your baseline. 2. Blue Moon, Belgian White, Molson Coors. The pioneer of the fake craft movement, while it's the beer that introduced many Americans to cloudy beer, it has become a shell of a traditional Belgian wit. It uses corn and rice adjuncts to thin out the body and hop extracts to eliminate the need for actual flours. The orange slice on the rim isn't a garnish. It's a necessary flavor additive because the beer itself is one-dimensional and industrial. 3. Goose Island IPA, post-acquisition. This is the heartbreak of Chicago. Once the pride of the Midwest, the 2011 sale to AB InBev moved production from local craft facilities to massive industrial plants in New York and Colorado. The recipe shifted from premium American hops to cheaper substitutes and tetra hop extracts. The result? A watery metallic IPA that trades on a name while delivering a big beer experience. 4. Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy, Molson Coors. In the world of fruit beers, this is the offender. Instead of the tartness of a traditional Radler or Shandy, you're getting a sugar bomb. It contains potassium sorbate to prevent it from exploding on the shelf because the sugar content is so high. It tastes more like a lemon-flavored malt beverage than a beer, relying on citric acid for a fake tartness that leaves a chemical film on the palate. 5. Ballast Point. Sculpin IPA, post-Constellation. The $1 billion mistake. When Constellation Brands bought Ballast Point, they tried to turn a San Diego masterpiece into a global commodity. Brewers from the original team revealed that the company demanded cost-cutting on the hop bill. The grapefruit version moved from real fruit to natural grapefruit flavor, and the base beer became thinner, more alcoholic, and less balanced. It went from a must-buy to a shelf turd almost overnight. 6. Kona Brewing Longboard Lager, AB InBev. The Hawaiian deception. Unless you are drinking this on the islands, your Kona was likely brewed in New Hampshire or Oregon by AB InBev. The recipe uses ascorbic acid as a shortcut for freshness and corn adjuncts to lighten the body. It's tropical marketing for an industrial lager that lacks the crisp, bready malt complexity of a true craft, Helles, or Pilsner. 7. Elysian Space Dust IPA, post-AB InBev. Elysian was once the king of Seattle's Pacific Northwest hop profile. After the 2015 sellout, Space Dust became an unbalanced bitterness bomb. They swapped out the expensive Yakima Valley whole flower hops for hop oils and extracts. You get the punch, but you lose the resinous, piney soul that made this beer legendary. It's a caricature of its former self. 8. Breckenridge Vanilla Porter, AB InBev. A masterclass in how to ruin a dark beer. The original used real vanilla beans. The corporate version uses natural vanilla flavor, a chemical extract that tastes like a cheap candle. They also added glycerin to the recipe to simulate a creamy mouthfeel that they lost when they cut the specialty malt bill to save money. 9. Golden Road Mango Cart, AB InBev. This beer is the fast food of fruit beers. Pre-sellout, it was a refreshing wheat beer with mango puree. Now, it's high fructose corn syrup and mango flavoring. It's designed to be shelf-stable and mass-market, which in the beer world means cloying sweetness and zero craft integrity. 10. 10-Barrel Brewing Apocalypse. YPA AB InBev. Another Oregon casualty. This beer was defined by its dankness, a quality that requires expensive, fresh hops. Post-acquisition, the hop schedule was simplified, and the dank was replaced by bitter. They added brewing sugars during fermentation to boost the ABV on the cheap, leaving the beer thin and harsh. 11. New Belgium Voodoo Ranger, Kirin/Lion. The most polarizing brand in the aisle, Voodoo Ranger has become a brand rather than a beer. To produce the massive volumes required for international distribution, the quality control has shifted toward consistency of flavor rather than quality of ingredient. The high ABV in the imperial versions often comes from dextrose and corn-derived sugars, resulting in a hot, boozy finish that masks a lack of malt depth. 12. Wicked Weed, Pernicious IPA, AB InBev. The ultimate betrayal. Wicked Weed built their brand on being the anti-corporate experimentalists. When they sold out in 2017, the wild ale program that made them famous was gutted. Pernicious moved from a handcrafted Asheville treasure to a mass-produced IPA using commodity yeast and hop extracts. It's the sound of a brewery's soul being traded for a distribution network. If those 12 represent the dark side, who is left to hold the line? For the beer geek, good isn't just about the absence of flaws, it's about the presence of integrity. These 5 breweries have refused the big beer check, maintained their own labs, and stuck to recipes that prioritize the ingredient over the margin. 1. Bell's Brewery, Two-Hearted Ale. This is the old reliable. It's an IPA that uses 100% Centennial hops. No extracts, no natural flavors, just pale malt and hops. Bell's remains family-owned, and their consistency is legendary. When you drink a Two-Hearted, you are drinking a beer that has survived the hype cycles without changing a single hop addition. 2. Founders Brewing, All-Day IPA, the gold standard for the session category. While others use corn to thin out their low ABV beers, Founders uses a complex malt bill of wheat and oats to keep the body craft while keeping the alcohol low. It's a masterclass in how to scale a brewery without losing the human touch. 3. Russian River, Pliny the Elder. Vinny Cilurzo is the patron saint of sanitation. Pliny isn't just a great West Coast IPA, it is a technically perfect beer. Every batch is tested for dissolved oxygen to the parts per billion. If a batch isn't perfect, it doesn't leave the brewery. That is the definition of craft. 4. Hill Farmstead, Edward. Hidden away on a farm in Vermont, Sean Hill produces what many consider the best pale ale in the world. They source their water from an on-site spring and use proprietary yeast cultures that they've nurtured for years. It's a slow beer movement in a fast beer world. 5. The Alchemist, Heady Topper. The beer that started the Haze Craze, yet it remains the most independent of them all. John Kimmich famously tells people to drink from the can to preserve the delicate hop aromatics. They've turned down every corporate offer to ensure that every can of Heady Topper is brewed under their direct supervision in Vermont. There is a reason these beers are benchmarks. They don't have mohawks, they don't have natural flavors, and they don't have corporate parents. They have process. The next time you're in the aisle, remember, you aren't just buying a drink, you're funding an ideology. Choose the laboratory over the marketing department. Choose the brewer over the billionaire. Cheers to the independent brewers keeping the movement alive. I'll see you in the next pour.